Hello, everybody. Okay, so here it is. It's May 2nd, and it's a Tuesday. So, all you homeowners or renters, pay your rent now, pay your mortgage now, and avoid that penalty. In my particular situation and my two sons' situation, you don't pay it by tomorrow, it's another $200. That's a lot of money, for missing it by a day or two. So pay today, get it over with. Figure it out. Call dad when in doubt. Yeah, see what dad's got. Hey, dad, you got $1,000 for me? I got to pay my rent. Yeah, I know how that is. Because I am a dad. That's okay. You got to do what you got to do. Got to pay that rent. It's a big motivator for me to help my kids. They're 33, 34 years old, 35 years old. And not kids. But, there's something weird about our society. Everything is like, everybody's learning stuff earlier, but yet they're not stabilized until they get into 30 for some reason. Except for, the jet set in California. A little sip of my Pepsi. This is a thermos. Let's see, thermos. Ultra thin stainless steel vacuum insulated, mug thing. It's actually designed to put a can in there. And, you can drink your beer or drink a Pepsi. I like Pepsi. I like Coke. I like whatever. I think I like Pepsi a little bit better. A little better carbonation. But, no condensation on the outside of this sucker. It really keeps the cold in so the ice doesn't melt. Here are the ice cubes. Yummy. Okay. We got some interesting things. Well, here's the topic. Whoa, this will blow your mind. There's conversation about UFOs, for God's sakes. And, these guys fly all over the place, apparently. And look at that picture. I'm like doing a little reverse pinch on my screen. You see it? Almost has, some illuminated. Where's Captain Kirk when we need him? Woo. Now, I have a little special thought about UFOs because back in the, the mid-late 70s, I was director of operations for World Associates, Inc., and it was the sole franchise with Kennedy and Cohen selling appliances out of the warehouse showroom kind of situation, which is commonplace now in many venues. But they sold washers, dryers, ranges, refrigerators. Anyway, so I'm living in West. Where were we living? It was in Pompano, and we had offices on the 5th floor at 800 West Cypress Creek Road. It's a 5-story office building, had a helipad on the top. Oh boy. we had a private jet. There's a picture somewhere around here, me standing next to the private jet, which we shared with Lester A. Byron, who's no longer with us. Yeah, today. He passed away. Very nice gentleman. Anyway, so, he built that office building. And I was I was observing that. And so, yeah, he actually built a helipad on top. So we could literally go to the roof. We, made it convenient to get on the roof. And you didn't have to act like a maintenance man, because we had, fancy shoes and fancy pants and nice shirt, nice tie. You don't want to be crawling on your knees to get on the roof. Anyway, so we fixed that up so it was convenient to get on the roof. I actually forget what that was like, but so we'd call over the helicopter and take us over to Executive Airport, and we just fly right over the traffic and get to Executive Airport in like 4 minutes. Otherwise it'd be a 25-minute drive to go, 4 miles or less. Anyway, so that was our location. And the reason why I bring all this up, we're talking about UFOs. Oh my God, look at that sucker. So we're actually, this view of this photo, if you can look at it in two different ways. But my idea is that however this picture was taken, that the UFO is slightly higher than the point of where the camera was. And we're looking under the belly of the UFO. Just imagine that. And under the belly is a circular kind of a pattern. And it's illuminated in some way. Looks like there's illumination all the way around underneath. Anyway. So that's God. Anyway, so reason why this, Photoshop, you can do all kinds of things. I look at this image and, forensically, and is there any touch-up work on this? No. This picture was taken in the, like 98, 99, something like that. So it wasn't like last week. But anyway, our CPA Vice President of Finance, the World Associates, a Cuban heritage, wealthy Cuban family. He was a good accountant. He knew how to account. And, nice young man. I was in my, let's say 30, 32. And he was, probably 31. I remember interviewing him and all that kind of stuff. And our CPA, Bill Barnett, who's no longer with us, he was our senior. He was like a senior partner kind of guy. And Mr. Lamar, who's still Lamar, he was, worked for Bill and myself, because I was, up there in that the top 3 or 4 or 5 of the company that had 500 employees or 400 employees, went to 800 employees. Anyway, so Justo and I became buddies. Ed says, get to know Justo, because we're deciding whether we're going to send him with you to Kansas City to open that store. So, it's a big deal for us. It's a $35 million, it's an expensive building and the pre-opening expense, inventory and everything else. It's a lot of money. It's not, several $1,000s. That's a lot of money. Millions. Anyway, so he says, get to know Justo Lamar. So I got to know Justo, and very nice gentleman. We go to lunch every once in a while. I went to dinner with his lovely wife, Marquita. I'm trying to think what her name was. Anyway, so he's telling me after, he got to know me. We're working together. Like every day. I'd have to go over to walk across. In the office, we had the fifth floor of this office building, or half of the fifth floor, I think it was, and had a big computer set up there, a Burroughs 2700, that was also lots of money, and you had all kinds of environmental stuff with the computer that. My I think my Apple Watch has more computing power than that B2700. But it was hot stuff, in the 70s. And anyway, so Husto and I became friendly enough where he shared with me a story, because he's got relatives, friends, you know, uh, this Latin family and that Latin, this Cuban family and Lamar's Cuban family, whatever, in Texas. So they have, connections in the sugarcane industry in, the southern part of Lake Okeechobee. Uh, you know, and he says, I had friends out there, and every once in a while I drive out and go see my friends. And he says on several occasions, one which I can recall vividly, of UFO sightings. Yeah, I mean, it was, you talk to, and you're going to be a Latin kind of person, but you could talk to, my, the people that deal with the cane, and cutting the cane, the field workers and so forth. They saw this all the time too. He says, now you go over there and talk to them, and they're not going to talk because, you're a gringo and you got a shirt and a tie and this and that. You don't fit in that crowd very well. He says, but, I can because I'm Latin, they're Latin, and, in a foreign country and you speak the same language, all that kind of stuff. So the reason for all this dialogue is he has personally seen UFO sightings in the Lake Okeechobee area. Often, he says, if you come with me, at midnight, we'll drive out there in a four-wheeler out in the sugar cane thing. And, we just sit around and twiddle our thumbs for a few hours, at midnight to 2 or 3 a.m., and we will see a UFO sighting. We got to do it, every day for like a week, because it's not every day, but it's very frequently. He says, so if you want to invest 3 hours a night, all week, you and I will witness a UFO sighting. He said, now let me tell you the recent sighting that I saw. This saucer kind of a thing looked just like this photograph right here, but this is not a photograph of Mr. Lamar's story. So he tells me the story. He said he would verify that this thing I have on the screen right now looks like what he saw, except that it hovered and it went down, and went down and went down, right to, let's say, 25 feet above the ground. He said, and then this trapdoor thing opened up, like this, opened down, and this like purple light emanated from the insides of this flying saucer. And then some beings, some Martian kind of people, some, extraterrestrial kind of people, would levitate down to our ground level. And, it's like they stood on our Earth and looked around a little bit and then went back up this escalator kind of thing, which is the flap that came down out of this. And they, became inside the flying saucer. And then this panel would go back up. And you can see the purple light that was emanating from the inside of dissipate because the door would come up and seal itself, and then it would go up, several thousand feet, and then it would all of a sudden make a hard, right angle turn and fly out of sight really fast, which basically went against all our theories of aerodynamics. And, because we couldn't do that. We gotta turn, and you have to bank, and you got ailerons and rudders, and because we're dealing with the theory of momentum, and gravitational force and aerodynamics with wings, and this guy just goes up and pew, takes off like completely violating all our laws of physics. I and back when I was a young whippersnapper, I learned and knew all the, at the time, all the things about, physics and physical chemistry. And, we did experiments with all this stuff, from the 9th grade on up. Dr. Lehrman wrote our textbook in high school. How unique was that? So we had this professor who taught me 9th grade physics, for God's sakes. Maybe it was 10th grade. And here he wrote the book. Now, you hear about that in college all the time, but this is the first time I ever heard of it in high school. Anyway, and he had some really very interesting experiments that we did in class, and we had to reproduce something similar, and his homework and study and all this stuff, study groups, and he was a really interesting physics teacher. I was kind of like in an advanced science thing. Anyway, so no, Dr. Lerman didn't have any, so all of a sudden I go over this and it would make a right angle turn that our aerodynamics doesn't support, because we have this theory of, momentum, and we're using the way in which we navigate ourselves through our atmosphere is, has to do with how we deal with our atmosphere and the aerodynamics, of air over a wing, and it creates a low pressure under the wing, and it's, which is basically how birds fly, using our atmosphere to create lift and to fly. Now this doesn't have wings like our airplanes do, because it has a saucer shape. So I think we're kind of looking underneath this saucer. I think that's what that view is. And upon closer examination of this photo that was shot, I think in 1999. Okay, so I have another shot. Would possibly, no, we don't have any geographic wartime. Okay, so that's the end of that photo. So there's another photo. Different flying saucer, different time, And I'm negative, I'm reverse pinching, this Apple technique. This sucker as much as I can. See now, here, we're also looking underneath this guy, underneath this flying saucer. So this is probably taken maybe from the ground, at maybe a 30-degree angle, looking at this guy from, it's 1,000 feet above ground. It looks like it's under the clouds. These kinds of clouds are like 2,500-foot clouds, from what I remember of, weather and stuff like that. So if we're at a 30-degree angle, we could be, if he's 2,000 feet up, then I'm 3,000 feet away, shooting up into the belly of this flying saucer. And look at this. There is a glow underneath. So there are a lot of sightings of things like this. They used to call them UFOs. Now they have another acronym for that, which the Defense Department came up with, which I'm not even going to bother to say or try to remember. Anyway, it's going to be UFOs for me for a while. But, if you go out with Mr. Justo Lamar out to the sugarcane fields in the southern part of Lake Okeechobee, where the soil is very rich for growing sugar, you see these sightings all the time. And so, the heavens have found Earth, and they're coming around and taking a look. And I think this is happening all the time in different parts of our globe. And I don't know where these two photos geographically were taken. I know that I believe this photo came from, like the Russian intelligence agency. It's not Florida skyline. You can see the grasses and the trees are not indigenous to Florida. Nice picture. It's almost, but look at that. Look right underneath. So, that would be the perspective of looking at that. And there's the other one. So, there was some news today about UFOs, which generated this picture. And then I did a little research and found this picture. It's like the two best photos. Now, Marilyn's brother lives in Arcadia, and he kind of elbowed over to me when we visited him one time in Arcadia, and he's in the middle of freaking nowhere. Woo! It rains real hard. He can't get out of there for 3 days. The water comes up, and he can't get his SUVs out of the driveway or anywhere else because everything's underwater. So he actually witnessed what he would call a UFO kind of a sighting, all right? And by the time he got his Sony camera out of his pocket, he had a picture. I have it in my somewhere, on 416-1100. I'll have to find where it is. But it just had, if you take, it's like the flying saucer came around and real close to him, like within, God, I don't know, let's say 50 feet, 100 feet. And the saucer came over and he had the corner of the frame of the Sony picture was really clear shot of like, part of this flying saucer. But you just saw it because you just saw this. You just saw a corner, much actually closer, and it was right in the corner of the frame. That's the only thing he got. He got it out and took the picture as fast as he could, and he just got a little tiny. He got 10% of the frame, but a real clear shot of the underside of one of these flying saucers. The leading edge of it, and it was, you know, he was, he was a little bit shaken because it's something like he's never seen before, and he couldn't get his Sony. Back it was a while ago. So you had the Sony camera and you turn it on, and it goes through, like a boot up period, for a stupid digital camera in those early days. They probably boot up today, but it's so quick you don't know it's booting up. Anyway, so we saw that. It was actually, he actually took a video, come to think about it. And when he was struggling to take this video, and he came around, and just in the frame, it was just a little corner of it, a little bigger part of the frame right here. So anyway, so, that's my wife's brother. So that's getting pretty close. And then Husto, he's telling me, come on out with me and I'll show you. And then he explained it. He's a CPA, he's a sharp young accountant. And he gave me very clear description of what he witnessed. He said, I won't tell anybody. He said, I know you now, pretty good. We worked together for, 8 or 9 months or a year. Not a real long time, but we worked together every day, multiple times a day for quite a while. So, and he got comfortable because he knew I was a scientifically interested party. And he told me about his encounter. Anyway, so I believed him. I absolutely believed him. And this is, 72, 82, 92, 02, 12. Oh my God. It's like 38 years ago. Can you imagine? Ooh, that's a long time. Yeah, I remember the story, very clearly. He explained it to me, and I remember very clearly. He says his family, friends of family, I think the King family, if I remember right, in Texas, they're ranchers, cattle, lots of cattle. I mean, lots of cattle. Multi-million dollar farms owned by these Cubans that escaped from Cuba in the 50s. Well, they went to Florida and they went to Texas, and they did in Texas and Florida what they did in Cuba, raise sugar cane and cattle ranching for for meat and so forth, and horses, big horse people. And he said, you go to Texas, and they'll give you the same stories as the story that I gave you here in South Florida. Happens in Texas too. So, yeah, I remember that. I don't remember where he told me. I think he told me at lunch. And we were finishing lunch, so we had to pick up the story again at the end of the day. I didn't have time to listen to him during the day. But we were finishing our lunch, and for some reason or other, we moved our topic of conversation into this UFO stuff. And he says, Jimmy, I've never told another person because they think I'm cuckoo. And but I'm going to tell you because you're a scientifically interested party, and I feel like I needed to share it with you. I said, okay, go ahead, tell me what's up. So he gives me this story. Woo! Opening the thing, and the purple light comes out, and a little, UFO guy, person with arms and legs, and a torso and a head similar to, and I don't know whether he was outfitted in some, a spacesuit or whatever, but it was a distance away, you know, let's say 1,000 yards. Yeah. I'm just recalling what he was talking about. So anyway, that's my UFO story. Anyway, so if you come across a UFO, let me know. And there you go. The number is right up on the screen there. 561-416-1100. It rings right into this marvelous iPhone. There we go. I want that one. This is my background, when when you open up the screen, it's real bright. Let me turn it down because let's see, how do we turn it down? There we go. And we turn it down. See, then now you can see my screen. The camera optics, the photodiodes that are inside, the imager are so sensitive that, if I turn this thing face in, you see how it's overexposed. But if I turn it sideways a little bit, so you're at a 30-degree angle with the imager, you can see, the full depth of exposure values. Anyway, so if you dial into me right now, 561-416-1100, I get thousands of calls. I can bring it right up into my audio panel here, and then we can have a conversation with my microphone and headphones. And the phone, is Bluetoothed, special Bluetooth signal is connecting. I can show you. Bluetooth. You probably can't really see it. Bluetooth, and then our second item, Rodecaster Pro 2 connected. Does it say what? Device type? Yeah, other. It's not on the list. You don't need to. But anyway, it's Bluetoothed into my Rodecaster 2 Pro soundboard here, which is controlling my sound, which is I can turn it up and you can hear everything inside my mouth. And we'll turn it down so you don't have to hear that. I mean, I have to stick my face right in the microphone. It's a very, very good microphone. It's the really good microphone. One of the best made by Shure. Shure, the Shure company. Here's another microphone here. Can you hear me tap on it? Sure. I think it's model 55. I've had this microphone, since I was 14 years old. I had newspaper routes that, I made money doing different things that kids do in a neighborhood kind of environment. We lived in the North Shore of Long Island. So I had my bike and I, slung these papers out in the driveways of delivering, what is it? Newsday or something. And I had 100, I think it was 125 homes, driveways. Can you imagine? Every day I'd drive around, a neighborhood and throw those, you don't have to, you got to fold the newspapers so that it was like in thirds, So the newspaper itself had a shape like this, not wide. And then you slipped it in a plastic bag, but you had to fold it in thirds, and you slip it in a plastic bag. So the first thing you had to do is when these suckers showed up at 6 a.m., because a truck would drop off in my driveway, 130. My route was 125 or 127. They gave me a few extras. And the first thing you'd have to do is you have to fold all these suckers and slip them in a plastic bag and then stack them up. You fold it over, and then put it away. I mean, it took a half hour just to stuff these things in plastic bags because they didn't come from the printer factory, whatever, when the newspapers get created. So I had to do it. I think I got 15 cents a paper. So you take 15 cents. Oh God, I hate to even do it. Let's just play over here. Calculator. Clear it. 15 times 120. I think it was 127. Divided by 100. Oh God, it couldn't be. Is that possible? 0.15 times 125. Oh, it's 18.75. I made $20. Every day I do all that to get $20. So, I think I did it 6 days a week. I didn't do the Sunday paper. Sunday papers are huge. And, to pile those on my bike. So I let someone else, someone with a truck. I didn't have a truck. I had a stupid bicycle. So I did it 6 days a week, So, two, so you multiply $20 times, that's $120 income. Multiply that by a month, and it's all of a sudden it adds up to be real money. So you take that figure right there, multiply it by 6. I only did it 6 days a week. That's $112.50. That's not, that's pretty much the kind of numbers. So, and then times that, times 4.33, goes to 4.33 weeks in the average month. Because remember, we've got months with 31 days and all that stuff. So it's 4.3 weeks in a month equals. So that's $487 a month, So, times 12. Oh, crap. Times 12. There we go. $5,844 a year. Now this is for some little 13-year-old kid making almost $6,000 a year just slinging papers. But it was it was a lot of work. Folding in the plastic bags. That was so annoying. That was the worst part of the whole thing. Riding around the bike and slinging them in the driveways. And you couldn't load up 125 newspapers on your thing. I could load half of them, and I had to ride my bike back to the house, load up the other half, and then go back to the route and start slinging again. So it was, a lot of pedaling. And then you get a rainy morning. It's raining. Then you got a poncho on, and oh, geez, you had the plastic bag, so if it rained, it wouldn't, ruin the paper. So I got, you have a lot of houses, a lot of different driveways. So I got pretty good at aiming that newspaper in such a way so that it'd go right up against the gentleman's, what do you call it, garage door. So that way it was raining, he could get the paper without having to walk out in the rain. And the paper would be somewhat protected from the overhang of the garage. Plus, it's in a plastic bag. So I got pretty good at aiming at that kind of a spot. And if I got a call, this is before cell phones, if I got a call from somebody, I didn't get my paper, I'd say, look right outside your garage door. Lift up that garage door and that paper's going to be sitting right there. Lo and behold, there's the paper. They was looking at it from the front door. I said, no, I sling them from a bike, so I can't get to your front door. You had too many shrubs and bushes. And I didn't want to figure out how to throw it over your bush and under the, So anyway, a little sip of Pepsi to wet my whistle. All right, let's go back to the photo thing, because this gives me reminders. Oh, look at this. There's our Mr. Trump. This was over the years on May 2nd. This picture came out of the White House. Sitting there with his attractive 35-year-old daughter, I think, at the time. It's 71 degrees. A high of 70, a high of 83 and a low of 70. And it's presently 71. So there's the range. See low, and then a circle goes around. And then you got high, and it's, in the low side of the temperature. There we go. May 2nd, Tuesday. This comes right off my iPhone. I do a picture snap, and there it is. And then I have a wire that goes from here all the way run over here behind into the computer so that we can see that. Okay, so there's been a little more stories about J.P. Morgan and the First Republic deal. And, the FDIC went to J.P. Morgan Chase. And I guess the CEO is Mr. Diamond. So the general chain of events is, so the wagons have been circling around the First Republic, for a month, 6 weeks, maybe 2 months. They closed, Silicon Valley Bank, and then after that, the Signature Bank, and then this one's 229 billion. I mean, these are big banks. They're not $1 trillion banks, but 229 billion is so, geez. You have 4,000 or 5,000 people, and they, they got stuck in the same situation that, Silicon Valley Bank got stuck with. They apparently had, disintermediation of funds, meaning people started taking money out of the bank, maybe because they're worried about, the viability of the bank, from rumors in the San Francisco area, in Silicon Valley, when they go out to lunch, saying, boy, did you hear this about, did you hear what's going on here? The regulars seem to be clamping up on them. This is before the bank was closed. So, those rumors circulate. And, if you're, a smart guy in Silicon Valley, and you're probably smart about more things than just making, chips and things, whatever those guys do. And so if you're 35 and you're smart, and you gotta be pretty smart to have, at 35 years old, unless you hit the lottery. So unless you robbed a bank, being a little stupid here. So if you earned, $1 million in money, you had to earn about $1.6 million in money. So after tax, it's $1 million. All right. So after tax, $1 million in cash. Now, the FDIC covers you up to 250,000 per account, which is, that's stupid low, in my opinion. That rate was, set in the, and I think in the 80s, and it hasn't been revised with inflation. You know, I don't understand this regulatory, and I've had debates with regulators because when you're sitting around with regulators, I'd rather talk about anything else than my portfolio because I'm sitting here and I know they're gonna get these 40 loans. These regulators are, they examine these loans and they can smell a loser. If you have a loan and it's not exactly gold bricks underwater. They can weed them out. As bankers, we weed them out a little faster, but eventually the regulators are going to get it. They're going to get to the loans. So they can pick out the ones that smell like rotten cheese. Pardon the expression. And we can see, because we understand the nuances of lending better than the regulators, quite frankly. But, if you got 40 loans that are, not the best, the regulators will pick out, 32 of them. So they won't get, the other 8, but eventually they will. Next year they'll get the other 8. This year they don't see that yet. As bankers, we see them, because we're touchy-feely on these loans right from the day they were originated, so it's hard for a regulator to kind of like match that kind of contact with the borrower and so forth. Anyway, so, rumors get out. So we're talking about this guy that makes $1 million after tax because, the cash is in the account. So in order for that to be freestanding cash, you got to pay taxes on that money. So you got to earn $1.6 million to end up with $1 million in cash, at a 39% tax rate. So I'm just assuming the tax rate, so if you got $1 million in cash, and you're hearing, rumor doomers about, and you got $250,000, insurance limit from the FDIC, you better believe you're going to take that $750,000 and do something else with it. Are you going to buy gold? That's possible. Or you open up, 3 other accounts in 3 other banks so that all your 4 accounts are covered with the 250 limit. Now, you see how stupid that is? Or, you got an account in the name of Jimmy, and then that's 250. And then I sign up with my wife an account, so that's Marilyn and Jimmy. So I get that account, you get 250. And then I, put 250,000 in an account where Marilyn is the sole signatory. So now you got a Jimmy account, you got a Marilyn account, and the joint account. So that's 750,000 real quick. And if you got an older son, so you put an account with him, and then you and Lee, and then you and Robin. So you can have your whole family unit, and have millions of dollars worth of FDIC coverage. So what are we all, a bunch of geniuses? The FDIC knows that. So why not just give, why not just say you got $2 million, $5 million worth of protection? But they should cover all of it. Why is there a limit? Just make it real high, so everybody's not worried. So then you don't have this disintermediation of, because what happens if the rumors fly around about a certain bank, whether it's a $25 million bank or a $250 billion bank, whatever. You got full coverage, then people aren't going to move their money all around the place, because of to solve the rumor mill. So the FDIC, if you look at it from their perspective, they're saying, well, we want because this way the depositor will examine management and also decide if they want to, have this much money in the bank because they're going to examine the management and the directors, of the bank. That's a bunch of bull crap. Who the hell, you know, you know the you know the the financial center manager of the bank that's near you that you walked in the door. You know, my wife's a financial center manager. So you come in, you shake hands with her, and you open up your account, and boom, bingo. There's a $250,000 account, 300,000, 400,000, whatever the account is. They don't give me a brochure so I can examine your board of directors. What? No. I've been managing banks from a very low level to, a very house. I was vice chairman of a bank and I was CEO of a bank and everything in between, for over 35 years. So, and maybe someone that puts in 25 million in your bank would say, hey, I would actually introduce that client to the president or CEO of the bank, someone that's going to put, 25 million as a deposit in my bank. So we go to lunch with, the CEO or the, president of the bank or the chairman or, all three. But that's like a social call. They look at the balance sheet of the bank and say, really, you don't have enough loan loss reserve in your portfolio. Really? You think a depositor he's running a ball bearing factory is really going to look at the CEO of the bank and say, Jimmy, I'm looking at your loan loss reserve and I don't think you have enough in there. No, it doesn't happen. So why? I mean, that's the FDIC's perception of a large depositor, someone over 250, is going to want to examine management. The depositor, is not the person that forgot to put the hedge on the treasury bill account, in the very senior levels of the operation of a bank, which I used to, enjoy and did. And, we would have weekly meetings regarding, the mismatch of the timing between the deposits and your assets, and in a commercial bank, in a savings loan, it's really crazy. Can you imagine you're making 30-year loans, but the duration of a deposit is 13 months, but yet you're making 30-year fixed rate loans. That makes no sense. Now, I used to originate, 30-year loans, fixed rate loans, but as soon as I had $10 million worth of them, which would be 30 or 40 loans, whoosh, I'd sell them to an insurance company because the mismatch of the 30-year and our, average, treasury bills and deposit mix, CDs, when do they come off and the maturities and all that. Yet, sophisticated computer systems that would tell you, your gap positions with the mismatch of your assets and your liabilities. You open up an account with the bank, that's an asset to you because it's your money and it's a liability to the bank. So all these deposits are basically liabilities, that's on the liability side of the balance sheet. So what does the bank do? Oh, well, we buy treasury bills because we've got to park it in something so we get overnight interest rates. And, so if you buy a 10-year treasury bill or, you buy a treasury bill that's 9 years old and I'm buying a treasury bill that has 1 year left. So that way I don't have long maturities on my assets, but I have shorter maturities on the liabilities. So you kind of match things up. Now, apparently, these banks, if you want to know the nuance of what happened, is they didn't hedge. Now, everybody knows, everybody that's over 13 years old knew 2 years ago that interest rates are going to go up. Well, if you get presented with all these deposits and you're going to park them in treasury bills, which is considered cash, from a financial accounting standpoint, that's considered cash because you can turn that treasury bill in to the Fed, bam, overnight, it turns into cash. Now, if you if you got $10 million worth of those, at a 2% rate, I'm making it up, but the interest rate market is 3%, you're underwater, by 40%, let's say. Can you imagine? You invest $1 million in a series of treasury bills, and the Fed bumps these rates 3/4 of a point, every quarter for like 4 or 5 quarters in a row, which is what the stupid Fed did. They're hammering these banks on their portfolios of treasury bills. So so if rumors spread somehow, it happens, and all of a sudden people start pulling out of money out of your bank, then you got to sell some of those treasuries to be able to write it, to be able to pay the depositors his money back. So why do we have, we have loans and we have treasuries. So you got these real short-term maturities, which is your treasury bill portfolio, and you park them there. So overnight you get, you get interest, and the Fed keeps giving you interest on, those treasury bills. Well, we park the money in treasury bills until such time as we can make a loan. And then, then we got a nice earning asset, because that's an asset to the bank and a liability to the borrower, a loan. But a deposit it's an asset to the owner of the deposited funds, and it's a liability to the bank. So anyway, banks take the deposit monies and come in, and in Florida, you're in a what's considered a capital surplus market, which means there are people moving in the state all the time, and they're bringing their money down here from New York and from California and other, blue states that have real expensive tax rates, state tax. You got Fed tax and state tax. Oh my God. Can you imagine New York? You got a 39% Fed tax rate, and then you got a 12 or 13% state tax. My God, you're over 50%. In taxes. That's like, God, I earn $100 and I got to give 50 away to the state and local government, the state and federal government. Anyway, so that's what happens if they're just a few too many depositors want to take their money and go buy a building. Maybe they park the money in your bank to give them enough time until they build a building, and it's, and now they're going to buy it because now it's complete. So all of a sudden, $10 million goes out of your bank. Well, if you don't have $10 million in the vault, or electronically deposited with the Fed, you got to finance that withdrawal. That has to, cash. A bank doesn't sit in there with mountains of cash. They invested overnight in treasuries and, in Fed fund rates and so forth. And so that's what happens. If they don't have enough cash in the vault, they got to sell some of their asset portfolio of treasury bills. Well, in a rapidly increasing interest rate market, they're going to take losses in the treasury bills. And they're big losses, potentially. Like 5, 10, 20%. Oh, God, I, so what do you do to protect that? You buy a hedge. So you go out, you make phone calls, and you make appointments with these hedge funds, which is multi-billion-dollar. I mean, they're like life insurance. They're like insurance companies. They've got huge amounts of cash balance sheets, and they give you like an insurance policy. It's not insurance, but they give you a contract. So they give you a contract that says you got a 2% average coupon rate for these series of treasury bills over the year maturity. We're going to guarantee that you're going to get 2.2% return, or they'll pick a number which you agree to, or you don't accept the contract. And they say let's just say 2, and they're going to guarantee that you're going to get your 2%. All right. Well, they'll charge you an eighth for that. That's 0.125. Well, when you multiply an eighth times 100 million, let's say, every day you got $100 million worth of possible withdrawals. You got to have this rolling amount of money availability in case depositors want to run off with their money and go buy a building or whatever they do with their money. Forget the rumor mill. Lots of lawyer firms have this what we call IOTA accounts, which are trust accounts, and the money builds up, and then over a 10-day period, and then all of a sudden it goes to zero because they closed on the loan to buy the building or to buy the house or to whatever they're doing with their money. Well, so you have to have a rolling inventory of cash, and to protect yourself, you meet up with your friendly hedge fund manager, and you pay for contracts. And if it costs you, $18,000 per million to protect in an increasing interest rate market, if you get that priced at an eighth, it could be an eighth, it could be 30 seconds, it could be 330 seconds, whatever. So apparently these banks didn't have hedge fund protection, and so they took huge losses to finance people that wanted to take their money and go somewhere else or use their money for something else other than having it sit in the bank. Rumor makes people get nervous, and people get nervous. And if I got $1 million in your bank and I hear a rumor about maybe a problem with the bank, you better believe it. I'm going to take that $750 and put it somewhere else. Or just take the cash and put it in your mattress. You don't want to lose $1 million. Because remember, it takes you $1.6 million to make $1 million, and that's assuming you don't have any state tax. So people aren't going to take the risk. They're just not going to do it. And the banks shouldn't accept the interest rate risk either. They should buy hedges. You pay the goddamn premium. It's a lot easier to pay. Sorry for the bad language. It's a lot. I was getting all involved in this conversation. It's a lot easier to swallow, and to tell your board of directors. And I've sat in those meetings, say, hey, we had to pay an eighth, on all these millions of dollars worth of deposits. Our people did a great job in raising all these deposits. So we got to buy treasury bills. You can't leave the cash in the vault, because there's so much pressure on earnings. You don't leave it in the vault, except for 12%. You got to leave 12% in the vault, but you're not going to leave 20% in the vault, because that other 8%, you should have it out earning. Now, you can't make the loans, timed perfectly with when the deposits come in. So you park the money in treasuries while you can get enough loans that fund and use those deposits and loans. And that's usually about 80%. 80% of a loan funding comes from depositors' monies. And the 20% comes from the bank's capital and reserves. And that's it. 80 and 20 is 100. So, I mean, that's how, in a loan, so that's the ratio of, loan to cash. Because when we make a loan for $1 million, 800,000 of that is, an undivided interest in all the depositors that had, when they open up accounts, boom. 80% of that money is deposit monies from depositors. And 20% of it is from the capital of the bank and earnings. So anyway, this is there's so many moving parts. It's a very exciting business. I just loved it. And it's not many people really know how to look at a bank balance sheet and figure it out, because the raw material is the same thing as your finished product. It's money. Yeah. I mean, it's one thing to have a ball bearing factory, right? So you got the ingots that come in the warehouse door, and you heat up the ingots and it gets liquefied, and then you spin it and turn it, whatever, and you end up with ball bearings, okay? So the ingots come in the back door, and ball bearings go out the front door, for people that need ball bearings. Well, in a bank, the cash comes in the back door through all your retail outlets that have branches, and they create and they get these deposits. And then the management of the bank accumulates these loans and makes loans. And out the front door is loans. Yeah, that's the name of the business. But in the interim period, we park it in treasury bills until such time as we get enough money to, buy the treasuries and, make loans, and buy the treasuries, make loans. And that's every day. I mean, all this crap all these moving parts are going on every day. And you know what? At 4 o'clock, literally at 4:00, at 4 o'clock every night, a bank pushes the button and it produces a complete balance sheet of the bank. Assets, liabilities, income, and expense. Those 4 pages pop out. Bang. They push the button at 4 o'clock, and that information goes right to the Fed every single day. Every single bank, every single day, sends it in at 4 p.m. local time. So you got 4 time zones. You got all these tranches of banks that, bam, all that information goes into the Fed. So you can't hide anything under, under the carpet in the bank, because at 4 o'clock, you got to be able to push the button. The Treasury Department of your bank is, let's say if I'm in charge of the loan department, they're going to say, Jimmy, close the goddamn loan, because we got to push the money. We got to push the button at 4. So if you don't have it in there by 4, then we don't have that as an earning asset tonight. We'll have it tomorrow, but we want it tonight. If the paperwork's all done and everything, what are you waiting for? Yes, it's like, every day it's like a rat race. But yeah, so there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of things. So in a $229 billion bank, there is a lot of moving parts. And you got a lot of people, thousands of people that are doing all this stuff that I'm talking about. Like 4,000 or 5,000 people in offices all over, the southeastern United States or the northwestern, wherever the hell this bank is. And, the main office, I think, of Republic Bank was, in Southern California, right next door to the Silicon Valley Bank executive office building. Yeah, that was, what was that? 200 billion? 209 billion? Oh my God. So you had $438 billion worth of banks that were seized within a week. And then you got the Signature Bank in New York. That was another 100 billion. So, gee, so 438, 538, so it's just a $500 billion worth of banks, bang, 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 get absorbed by other banks. What a windfall that is. Oh my God. You see these FDIC deals, it's terrible. Yeah, God. Because the FDIC takes what JP Morgan didn't like about Republic Bank. So when they make an offer, you know, to the executive manager of the banks, which I was on the receiving end of offers, you got like a week to decide. You want Republic Bank or not? They give you a bid package. That's what they call it, and it's, you know, it's a good inch, 2 inches of paperwork. So the first thing you do, you get the bid package, you divide it up into the different disciplines within the bank. Okay, here's the liability portfolio, here's the asset portfolio. So you're going to run through, 1,000 loans to decide if you're going to take the loan portfolio in full or which ones you're going to kick out. So that's what the FDIC gets stuck with. And in this case, I think they refused like a 10 or 11 billion dollars worth of something, accumulate a bunch of somethings. But you got to figure that out in a week, and then you go back to the FDIC and you say, okay, we'll make the deal. You're going to take this. We're going to take that. We're not taking these $11 billion worth of loans because they got a little hair on them. So those are going to be yours. So we flag those for you. And here's the deal. So, yeah, all of a sudden you absorb 220 billion because you don't take 10 billion. You kick that back to the FDIC, say that's yours. So then the FDIC has to turn that into cash. Well, that's where the taxpayer really gets in the nose because those assets that are left with the FDIC during these trades that we're talking about recently, the bank closures, they have to resolve those loans one by one, turn them into cash, and then they're basically reserving, they're liquidating. That's the word, liquidating. Oh my God, what a word! That means they're taking haircuts. They could get 50 cents on the dollar. Well, when it's 15 billion, and you can only get 50 cents on the dollar, that's a $7.5 billion loss to the FDIC just for that bank closure. And it's, whew. So the bank has to figure this out real quick. And Newsmax. Oh my God, what's going on with Newsmax? Ooh. Tucker Carlson is right about whatever, So then you got Tucker Carlson. He just got knocked out of Fox News because on Friday, 2 weeks ago, Friday, he opened up his big mouth about something, and those guys, the Murdoch, they just whacked him. When you think you're invincible, if you think you're invincible, that's the end of you because they'll cut you off right at the knees. The institution is always bigger than the individual because there's always somebody else. They may not be able to find another Tucker Carlson right away, whether it's a liberal guy or a conservative guy. He had you know, 3 million to 7 million people audience. He was the highest rated cable news guy. I think news guy, period. He had 7 million, you know, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It depends on the day of the week and all that kind of crap. And I don't know that much about broadcasting, but he was the biggest news guy in the entire Fox network because he had the biggest audience. And the biggest audiences demand the biggest money when they go to commercial every 8 minutes. You know, in a given hour of Tucker Carlson, there's 18 minutes. 18 minutes out of every hour is commercials. You only get 42 minutes, of Tucker. The rest is commercials, which is 18 and a half minutes, something like that. It's little pieces, a minute and a half at a time, and they squeeze it all the way around. There may be 6 or 7 major interruptions in the broadcast, like Tucker's 1 hour broadcast. So the bigger the audience, the more the advertisers have to pay for some piece of that 18 minutes of advertising. And the My Pillow guy eats up an awful lot of that 18 minutes. My Pillow. Oh my God. You've seen that commercial. You've seen it one time. You've seen it, hundreds of times. Amazing. I just lost FAU for you on my live streaming. All right, so what are we? We're an hour and 17. Yeah, that's it. After about an hour, they've had enough. So that whole crowd just disappeared off my live audience. All right, so anyway, so we're about done for today. We'll do this again tomorrow. We talked about flying saucers. We talked about bank mergers and acquisitions. And look at that, Brennan Wilson. Sous chef. Yep, number 2 guy in the Neiman Marcus kitchen, the whole shooting match. When you're sous chef, you're number 2. And you've got a executive management, senior level position when you work in the back of the house. So you got the executive chef and you got the sous chef. Sous chef number 2, executive chef number 1. And then you got everyone else in the kitchen, and you got the head guy that does all the, the frying and the head guy that does the sautés. You got the head guy that does, salads. I worked in the back of a big commercial kitchen. Oh my God. I started out peeling potatoes, literally. This big, this big as a Hobart. Hobart, they make these big machines that make like mashed potatoes. Well, the first thing you got to do with mashed potatoes is you got to sit next to a huge bin of potatoes, and then you got to peel them. Well, there's some schmuck in the kitchen that peels the potatoes. Well, that's where I started on peeling potatoes. Oh my God. And you got to climb in to this huge stainless steel pot that you throw all the potatoes in. And then you got to boil them up and soften them up. And then you got to drain the water. Well, when you're talking about, 500 gallon or 800 gallon, these big, Hobart that has a rounded bottom on it. Oh, jeez. This one time I crawl inside the Hobart thing to clean, a little spot of where the potato burnt against the stainless steel inside this thing. So some guy, whoops, takes a spoon, with his big mix, and bangs it on the outside of the Hobart. And, my head is like, woo, it was like vibrating from the sound of that. Oh, God. That was when I was a kid going through college, working in a kitchen for 78 cents an hour. I remember that vividly. It wasn't even $1 an hour. It was 78 cents. Not 75 cents. Not 80 cents. 78 cents. God knows where they came up with that number. But I remember it wasn't a big number. But, you add it up, weeks, every day. So I did that 7 days a week, 78 cents. I got out of potatoes and I started working, you know. Oh, you work the jellos, you're getting up in the world. You work jellos. And if you work salads, then you're up a little higher on the pecking order. And then you got, guys does all the fried foods. Anyway, but I actually got up to the cooking the fillets. Now that guy is now he's not a sous chef, but he's probably one of the most senior people in back of the house in the kitchen, because I remember cooking 40 or 50 fillets at a time, because it was a kitchen for dormitories, and all these people would flood in there at 5:00 p.m. to have dinner. But the fillets were served in the lunch, the lunch hour on Saturday, and the 11 a.m. Food setting. I forget what they call that, on Sunday. But when you cook the fillets, and I cook the fillets on Saturday and Sunday, you could have 40 or 50 of those at a time. And you got the medium rares over here. You got the the mediums and the medium well. And I was working in a school that was in the South, so medium well was I wouldn't cook well done. Screw it. I wouldn't. I send it out medium well. I would not cook well done. That's a step too far in ruining a good piece of fillet. Turn it into a hockey puck. I spilt my Pepsi. You wonder what I'm doing. I got all excited, grabbed my drink, because I was going to bang on the side of the stainless steel. Oh boy, you talk about it vibrates your fillings out of your head. Anyway, so I got up to fillets. I never got to like sous chef or that kind of stuff. I was always a food service kind of a guy, I never waited tables. I was never a front of house. You got tips and all that shit. It was strictly, how much an hour. And I remember starting at 78 cents an hour, and I forgot what it elevated to. It wasn't much. When you get a 5% raise on 78 cents, it ain't a lot of money. 5 times 7, 30. You get another 3.5 cents, you keep it. No, you don't keep it, because then you're, 81 cents an hour instead of 78. Anyway, but, times are different. Now those people, the minimum back there is like $15 an hour. And if you got sous chef, maybe you're making $24 an hour. Today numbers. $24, $25 an hour, sous chef. Executive chef, that could be $100,000 a year. It could be, if it's executive chef in a fine dining place in Manhattan, it's $250,000 a year. I remember those numbers. Okay. Well, on that, it's 1 hour, 24 minutes and 5 seconds. 6 seconds, 7, 8, 9. So we're gonna wrap it up here, and we'll. Yeah. All right, shut up. They're trying to get. They all want to go home, So anyway, so listen, you all have a great evening, and I'll try to hook up with you again tomorrow. In the morning, sometime in the morning. And you all have a good afternoon. Have a great lunch.